so it takes a while to find us.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I'm going to bring meeting to order. I'm Don Berube, 135 River Road.
Kim McDaniel, Select Board Rep.
Alice Handall, 9 Edgewood Drive.
Carrie Mackinnon, Community Development Director.
Jess Duke, 50 Brown Hill Road.
Jonathan Petrangelo, 5 Whittier Drive.
Michael Lawton, 3 Asa Drive.
Sandy Crystal, 1 Shoreview Drive.
Secretary.
All right. What do we got? I think you will be voting tonight, definitely. So we'll get right into it. For the under minor modifications, conceptual consultations, we got application 201-24, Bow and Arrow Properties LLC. Ella Abed, simple auto sales, minor site plan modification, proposed used car sales located at 730 Route 3A. How you doing?
Good, thank you. How about yourself?
Good. Tell us what you want to do and
Few cars at the lot that Curtis owns, about 10 to 15 at the max. That's what he allowed me. We're gonna start with 10 down the road, see how the business goes. If it goes good, then we'll increase the number of cars. So that's basically what the plan is.
Yep.
Just like-
so you're gonna have an office space in the building?
This is correct, in his building, correct.
Yep.
I don't have a separate building, it will be in his building, but I will have my own entrance and my own office.
So
It's a pretty simple minor modification to the plan you talked about very recently. I think the most important thing to look at is parking, just to make sure that there's adequate parking for businesses on the site. And that the use of sales of motor vehicles is permitted in the commercial district, so that's not an issue. It's just a matter of making sure that both uses fit on the site.
I'll make a motion to accept as complete.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have
So
accepted it.
now questions. Is there a limit on the number of cars or is it just determined by the number of spaces?
We're limited by the number of spaces that are available, yes. So it appears that there are 24 total spaces on the lot, and the property owners are here as well, so they might.
Yeah, there's, it was recently restriped. There are 26 total spots. 25 of them are regular, and then I have one ADA handicap spot, which would be the 26.
Curtis, can you just introduce yourself for the
Sorry,
record?
yes, I'm Curtis Joyner. I'm one of the property owners.
So if there's 26 total, the Simply Auto Sales has been assigned, how many of those currently?
10 in, yeah, 10 right as of now, and then up to 15 later. And that would be including employee parking and customer parking.
So based on our parking calculations, he needs basically 3, I believe. What was the square footage of the office?
3,200 square feet.
Of the part for Allah.
So including the bathroom space which is shared, or just the office itself? Is 500 square feet.
So for motor vehicle sales and rental, you need 1 parking spot per 600 square feet of gross floor area, which I think we'd count the office space in this case, plus 1 per 3,000 square feet of outside display area, which is the area where the cars for sale are parked. So I measured out the area, the whole area along that edge of the parking lot is under 3,000 square feet. So essentially he needs 2 or 3 parking spaces in addition to the spots that are filled with his cars that are for sale. And then as far as the existing use, the escape room, I think we said that, just looked at this the other day, needs 1 per 300 square feet. The total building was the total building was 30 by 50, is that right? So I guess
1,500.
divided by 300. So you need only 5 spaces technically, but I do know you are hosting small parties and gatherings that may require more than 5 parking spaces.
Correct. Yeah. As of right now, we don't see ourselves exceeding 10. We, with the limit of the amount of people that we can have in the escape room itself, we have a limit of 6 per. I'm not going up to 10. The game room that's upstairs, we do have walk-in, but we, even when that is at max capacity, we only have 5 or 6 vehicles there at each time, plus 2 employee cars. So most that we have had has been 9. So, and that's with the building pretty full.
So it sounds like the plan as submitted is acceptable from a parking perspective.
So is it all? Can't remember what it looks like out there. Is it all clear to the property line, and is that area gravel right now, or what is that? What does it look like?
It's all paved. It's all pavement up and around the sign. There's a little excess spot where he would be parking his cars, more for display purposes, so they're viewed from the road. But that is all paved and striped.
So they're not proposing, you're not proposing any physical
No,
changes to the
there's
parking
no
area,
changes
it's
to the
just
lot at all.
defining the areas for the different uses, but nothing's physically changing.
I believe, Gary, I gave you a small site plan.
Yeah, they have it in front of
Oh,
them.
okay, sorry, I didn't have it on me tonight, so.
So on the plan, it shows a limit of paving around the parking lot, but it's really goes
Yeah,
all the
so
way.
This plan was from a few site plans ago.
Oh,
It was
right.
Previously
Yeah.
from 2002, and this is not what the site actually looks like.
Yeah, as we said, parking doesn't go that way.
So yeah, it was
No.
difficult to draw it on there because it's not actually what's in
Okay.
the field today, but I can.
So I guess my other question is how do you remove snow from there?
So I plow. There is area for snow removal on the far bank. So what I would do is back drag out of there. Ala and I would set up a kind of a way that I could either have the keys for the vehicle or he would be available to move the vehicles so that I could get plowing done during every storm.
And what's on the other side of the property line?
On the other side is another
Car dealership.
car salesman.
Yeah.
That's Scriponi.
Okay. So I pulled up the
Yes.
site, so you can see, that might be too much. You can see that that parking that he's talking about using is already here.
Those would, yeah, that area would be the dedicated spots.
And then, would there be some more over by the sign here?
Yeah, the idea is to get, as much visibility from the road for Ala as possible so that he can, just for advertisement purposes or
More
people pass the
exposure.
cars, more exposure. Yes, that's a better way of saying it. So he will take that little corner section there. Yep.
So are the cars maintained someplace else? Like if they need to have repairs done or?
In our contract, we are not having any repairs done on site. They would have to be done somewhere else. All vehicles in there have to be operational and ready for sale.
I already have a contract with my mechanic up in Franklin. I personally live in Tilton. So if any car needs repairs, it's gonna go to Franklin to have it done. And once it's ready, then it will come and sit on the lot.
What about lighting?
Currently, we have some decent lighting from the building itself. There are, right next to that sign, there's a couple lights pointing at the sign. Operation hours, I'm not sure what you're looking at, but there's some decent stuff kind of in the back, but not a ton on that backside.
So no new lighting?
I wasn't proposing any new lighting, yeah.
So in Ala's operational brief, he proposed 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday as the operational hours, so there wouldn't be any after dark time, even in the winter.
Anybody else put any questions?
Oh, I have a question. So in this district, I can't remember, can they park up to the lot line? Is there no setback at all?
I think it's 10
What
feet.
parking lot?
Sorry, the parking lot's already
Yeah, that's
there.
the problem.
And I believe, so and as far as the easement for utilities, we wouldn't be parking any further past what Croponi is parking. You can kind of see where our lot ends prior to their lot. The grass is actually part of our lot before the easement a bit further. I don't know if I'm explaining that properly. The tar ends before the lot ends there.
Looks like what happens from the pavement up to the other? Is it like a slope there?
No, it's actually just, it's flat ground, but it's just not paved. There's just some rock and dirt there. Nothing really, you can actually just drive directly across to their lot. There is a small chain link, just a physical chain that kind of dangles between a couple posts between the two. But if that weren't there, it is a flat level. You could drive right over.
Do you know, like, could you point out on there where that lot line is? Is it like midway in between the two paved sections? Like,
Yes, sir. It's actually,
Like this, you can kind of see there's.
oh, you got, yep.
Oh, okay.
Is that a fence I kind of see?
Yep, those are the posts. Yeah, so it's, yep, exactly. So right where that mouse line is going across,
Okay.
those are posts, and that's the fence. It's not a fence, it's just a single chain that goes in between.
So I guess so what's drawn on the plan is not really
No,
accurate.
No.
Because they're not going up to the lot line. They're
Exactly.
just, okay.
For a couple feet off, yeah, because that strip is only, what, 8 feet wide maybe?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's helpful.
So I'm gonna open this to the public, if anybody in the public has any comments or questions. Seeing none, I'm gonna close the public hearing.
there's a motion that this doesn't have regional impact.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Second, I didn't, thank you.
Aye.
Opposed? No regional impact.
You, for the waivers, sorry, you said a broad waiver request is required. So broad that I don't know what that means.
I know. This is a great example of the type of application that we could handle administratively in the future when we change our regulations, because there's not a lot to discuss here at the planning board level. It's such a small change. But based on our current regulations, I think we kind of have to waive everything because we don't have, a fully designed plan. We don't have all of that. So in essence, the applicant is requesting a broad waiver from the site plan.
Can I use that language?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because they're not applicable to this application.
And then I noticed that they were asking about using reduced salt practices. Is that, because this already exists, is that already in a condition for this lot?
I don't call, you might, if the salt usage on the parking area was discussed previously.
We don't actually use salt in the parking area at all, for treatment.
So should we make that a
We
condition?
use,
Yeah,
yeah,
why not?
Okay,
Do you just use sand or?
yeah, we use sand. And then we do our own plowing and treatment.
I mean, you're not using a sand salt mix?
No, last year we didn't use any at all. That was our first year of operation. We didn't really need to at that time. It's a pretty flat ground. We could get pretty close with the plow. It was all covered well. I did sprinkle some in front of the doorway, but none in like the parking area.
does anyone have any other conditions beyond the broad waiver approval and reduced salt?
The only thing I suggest, maybe I might naturally be restricting based on the parking, but if you want to set a cap on how many cars for sale you want to see there. Or just until they run out of parking.
I think the parking is the like natural, as long as they're following the parking rules,
Yeah.
then it's
You-
limited by that.
I mean, with the except, it is kind of limited by that. But like on 3A, we have the little card guy next to Gordon Road. I mean, they got room to park 20 cars, but sometimes it looks like there's 80 in there. Because they just, double stack and,
Right.
I mean, they're not doing any repair. I don't see that happening in this site, but, but to have some,
I think it's also good to have as part of the approval a number. That way somebody doesn't have to, years down the line, doesn't have to go and dig up, what were the current requirements at the time? You have it tied to the site.
So how many do you want as a max? 1, 2, 3, 4.
have any spots against this?
I think you're only gonna get 15 in there. Yeah, 15 cars in addition to the parking area. I don't see there being room to fit any more physically unless you think otherwise. I mean,
No, you're saying in that second.
So, yeah, so
Yeah.
15 cars that you're selling
Yeah.
would be what we would recommend as the max
I agree.
number.
Yeah.
Because you're limited on needing to still have parking access that meets the criteria.
Yeah, when we first had discussions about this, that's what we were saying.
That's what we agreed, Curtis and I.
So I think that's what,
Because what we don't want is, you know, for you having an event there, then also, you know, people are parking on the side of 3A.
and
Absolutely.
yeah, and then there's 20 you
Yeah.
know, cars or whatever.
Absolutely.
Or 50 cars.
50.
So those are the conditions.
Doesn't need to be a condition, but just as a reminder, you just make sure that any additional signage is properly approved with sign permits and meets our sign code.
All right, I make a motion to approve application 210-24 Bow Arrow Properties with the following conditions that we grant a broad waiver from the site plan regulations, that a reduced salt plan is reduced salt best practices for all non-pervious surfaces be implemented, and that there be a limit of 15 cars for sale at any one point.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Jessica, that was you the second?
With Sandy.
Sandy. Oh, sorry.
I would say the findings of facts are that it's appropriate for the area of town that it's in, that it's just a different use of an existing already built structure. That.
It's maximizing the use of a property.
Well, thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night. Did somebody second the findings of fact?
Okay. Am I all set or anything?
All set.
You're all
Thank
set?
you very much. Okay,
Thank you very much. Take care.
have a good night.
Does that have to be voted on then?
So we had all those in favor of the findings of fact?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
What's this Muskeg thing
Oh, so
on the agenda?
it's very minor, but you guys happen to be meeting, so I thought I'd bring it to you. They had some trouble with the curving that they had proposed. They actually sent some pictures, we didn't print them, but it was like totally crumbled. It didn't work on the radiuses that they needed.
Okay.
It was terrible. So they're proposing a substitution. I asked them to provide a letter just verifying basically that it's gonna work still and do what it's supposed to do. So.
The curb is a big part of the drainage.
Exactly. So it is going to be 1 inch shorter than what they had proposed, but they say that it won't have any meaningful change in its functionality. It'll just be a slightly different profile, more sloped instead of straight. Same material, just a different shape.
Is there concerns about like jumping the curve because it's shorter and more curved that some car could? Easier?
I
Is it?
mean, I think the purpose of the curb, a big part of that purpose is for the drainage. Yeah, it's not to keep cars in the, and somebody could go over the curb. and
One
then
more
over the
inch,
curb.
but still going.
Well, it's also more rounded, so
It's more of a slope instead of a static.
Yeah.
So do we have to actually do anything, or is this just notifying us?
Since you're here, if you want to take a vote and make it official, honestly, if you weren't going to be meeting soon, I would have just told them to go ahead with it. But since you're here, we'll make it official.
I'll make a motion to approve Muskeg Beverages curb substitution as requested in the letter dated November 6, 2024. Jonathan?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? There you go. Moving right along. Correspondence and other business. Review.
Was in one of the minutes, which we'll get to eventually. It mentioned the elementary school impact fee.
Yes. It is under review with the town's attorney, which is
Okay.
taking longer than expected. So,
Okay.
yeah, we were gonna do that. I think
At
tonight,
this
actually.
meeting, it referenced,
Decided not to rush it. We'll send
Okay.
it through the proper review process.
right, okay, good, thank you.
One,
Yep.
one developer was asking if it was gonna be $1,000 and I said, not quite.
Yeah, Sandy, if you missed it, but it's proposed at
Step.
7,000, I believe.
6,800,
I think it was over 7, but
7,800. 7,800 for the single family. So did they update this though? Are we
Yeah.
gonna get a copy of the
when it
update?
actually, when it comes back around,
Okay.
yeah. So they did update it. The multifamily did increase significantly because they had accounted for the number of students per unit with all of the multifamily in Bow, and all of it except Icandra is age restricted.
Yeah.
So it's
So that's,
totally unbalanced.
that was
Yeah.
what I was concerned with.
Yeah, so they fixed that,
that before.
and there was one other change too. But
So I brought this up to Bryce as well, Bryce Larrabee with the school board because, and I don't think he ever got a copy of it, but we should make sure that they get a copy of this. Cause my question still is, I guess, unanswered. The numbers don't necessarily make sense to me as far as the projection for the middle school. Like I would still expect those numbers for the middle school to be higher than what they're listed.
What document is that?
This is the prior impact study
Oh, okay.
from September 30th.
Oh, I never saw
I
that.
held on to it.
okay. I can send around the updated draft to everyone just so you have it. That's around.
It sounded like they didn't get a copy of this, which I found surprising that they wouldn't have.
Yeah, I know. I have not sent it to the school yet.
Okay. Because I personally, I think those numbers for like grades 7 and 8 in particular don't make sense. Like I would expect them to be higher because Dunbarton gets incorporated into that and they're basically staying flat from the 5th and 6th grade numbers. Like it seems like it would be increasing by more, so.
Did they come in at 7th or 8th?
7.
Yeah, I will send you all a copy of the updated draft so you have it. And then I'll also send the copy over to, we were working with Dwayne Ford from the school district.
So Bryce talked to Dwayne and Dwayne didn't, maybe it's just that Bryce didn't describe it to him properly, but Dwayne didn't know what I was referring to, so.
I don't know if Dwayne has seen the final draft, not the final, the draft. So I will have us send it to him. But
Okay.
the consultants worked with Dwayne to collect data, so all the numbers came from him.
Talking about the minutes, do you want to approve the minutes and then get into site plan review?
Either way.
Sure.
Yeah, there's 2 sets of
Double the
minutes.
Looks good. We're all looking at you, Sandy.
Yeah, no, I wasn't here, so you didn't,
Oh, you're not here, good.
so you didn't.
No, we weren't here
No,
last meeting.
well, I wasn't here the last
She wasn't
meeting,
here last
but
meeting,
I was
so
here
we
for the first,
put 'em off.
the first of them. Yeah. Yes, no, they're fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 3rd, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I will abstain on the October 17th because I was not in attendance.
And I wasn't in attendance either, so.
All right, somebody else has got to step up.
Adam, did you have any? I did read
Ginger
it.
gets my comments every time.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 17th, 2024.
Second.
Jess got it. Got it. Jess did.
Just it. All those in favor?
Aye. That's it.
Abstain,
With two
two abstentions.
Got it.
All right. Back over to
Is anyone
site
else?
plan review.
Yeah, I am.
Outside.
Okay.
Oh.
My kid's fighting us.
Yeah.
All right. Scott, do you want to roll up and introduce yourself?
No.
You can.
Yeah, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna be lazy. Don't mind me. Do you want to go first, actually, or with your site plan stuff, or do you want?
You can do whatever. So this is Scott.
So, yes.
You can introduce
All right, for
yourself.
those of us that haven't met, hi, I am Inspector Scott Tenney, the Building Inspector and Code Enforcement Officer within the town of, or within the Office of Community Development. Got that, Ginger?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I kind of knew.
Gotta make sure the record's correct.
So we've been working together on looking through zoning stuff, especially related to his role as building inspector and code enforcement officer. I guess just returning, we talked about some of the site plan and subdivision stuff I had picked out before. A lot of it was basic stuff, but there's a couple things that I need you guys to figure out. One of them is, excuse me.
Is this zoning?
Zoning?
Well, so
Yeah.
I guess one of the things, 3.02P in the subdivision regs, which is the secondary access, seems like we've all talked about it a lot, that it needs changes, but I don't know if there's a
For what?
consensus. The secondary access for subdivisions.
Oh,
It seems like there's been a lot of discussion that it needs to be fixed, and I don't know if there's consensus on what the fix is.
What? Do you have the page or anything?
So it's 3.02P in your subdivision
Oh,
regs,
subdivision.
one- Anyone wants mine?
I don't know.
You can have mine. It's at the bottom of the page there.
Yeah, this has come up. So are you suggesting that what's the suggestion?
I don't know. Well, we've identified it as a problem.
Well, the point is,
What the solution is.
the point is coming from the standpoint of safety, right? The fire chief generally wants 2 ways in if,
So part of the problem we've found is how to interpret it. Does it mean all roads? I think it does say all roads. Does it mean all roads or does it mean all new roads? Does it apply to existing
Oh,
roads? and
yeah,
how does it
the,
apply to existing roads?
our favorite road, huh?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think we all agreed it needed clarification, but it didn't seem like there was any consensus on what that should be.
so what we're saying is if the road already exists, they can subdivide to their heart's content, not limited by 12. If a new road is put in, they need to follow.
As it stands, it says all roads. We just don't know what all roads means.
Do people want to grandfather in old
Which
roads?
is, yeah.
Any road.
It says any road, sorry.
Yeah.
I gave mine away, sorry.
How dare you?
Yeah, I mean, for most part, when it's a new development,
That's clear.
that's clear, it's easy. But when you have, I'm trying to think of the name of the road that comes off Pines Road. Right after. You know, that's the one road that's
Yeah, but I'm also thinking if you did make it clear that on existing roads, as long as they had the right road frontage and size, they can subdivide away. Other people will figure that out. Jeff Knight will go looking around town to see where he can do it. So it's not just gonna be limited to that road.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm against it. I just think that it won't just end with that road. So it's really,
Any dead end road.
any dead-end road. And then, you know, I mean, the big key is you don't want any, you know, subdivision off that. You know, when you go off that road and you're adding another branch, it's,
Yeah. We created a list of all of the roads with one access for the hazard mitigation plan, and there were a lot more than I thought.
what's interesting, because at the NHACC meeting, there happened to be someone talking about Atkinson, and they mentioned that they tend to do a lot of roads with cul-de-sacs. And, you know, they just mentioned that. We weren't talking about access or anything, but just,
Does anyone feel strongly that like we should make it clear that this applies to all roads, or? I don't really have a strong opinion either way.
well, yeah, I know. I guess I have concerns about adding, you know, a lot of development onto something that's basically a dead-end road.
That one was tough though on that Wood Hill where there's like 30 houses and we're talking about adding one more house, you know, like.
Right, but you know, at what point do you say no more? You know, it's difficult. Actually, it wasn't just one, if I recall.
Yeah, they want.
Yeah.
It wasn't one, it was a subdivision.
That one was a little different though because
Because
the
that,
word said that you can't subdivide.
Yeah, that one was a little bit more nuanced, but
Yeah. I mean, and on the other side, that was tougher with that road is that road wasn't always a dead end.
It was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
You know,
mean, my opinion is to leave it as it is stated, and then I know that then opens up the discretion of the planning board, but I mean, how many roads are on that list? Is it more than 20?
might have been 20 to 30. They didn't all have more than 12 lots. It was just all roads with no.
Some, okay, so maybe there's 20 situations like that. I feel like we handle that on a case by case.
Do you want to change any wording or just like to make it even more clear, or just leave it as is?
I think if you leave it as is, it leaves the planning board room to interpret it on a case by case, I guess.
Yeah, I think for now, I would probably leave it at that.
That's fine. Take it off the list.
What else you got?
I think they're good with a lot of the other ones already.
At some time, we probably, Gary, I don't know what's gonna happen, but with the maintenance dredging of the stormwater basin, because right now it looks like it requires a CUP. And if it's kind of an approved stormwater detention facility that's kind of been approved and we have a plan, they shouldn't need a CUP to maintenance dredging.
Yeah. Could you work with the Conservation Commission to come up with a proposal for that?
So does it matter if they have like an inspection and maintenance plan that lays out?
Well, that's exactly, these are the criteria that I was thinking of, to say, because we don't want people to say, oh, well, it was created as a stormwater basin, 30 years ago, and, it doesn't really look like it, because it was, it didn't go through, there might not be a plan for it that's really clear in terms of defining the limits and stuff like AOT stuff now has.
I guess that's what I was thinking of. If there's a plan for maintaining it and dredging it, then and that was approved.
Right. Yeah, I was looking at the AOT rules to see what they say about, operations and maintenance and stuff like that. But yeah, that I was thinking of kind of criteria like that. I think some older things it may not be, there might not be as much, but if it's on a plan, that's well defined, I think that's something that could just take it off the CUP list, definitely.
And then the other job for Sandy and the Conservation Commission is the recommended plants.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I think that it's also putting language in general, because the plants list that's in there was really limited to, oh, these are like hedges.
Yeah,
It
those were
it wasn't, it was for screening, it wasn't overall planting. I mean, one of the things that I think that we should put in there into the site plan regs is definitely saying that it should be like 80% native, or, species or whatever. I'm still trying to figure out whether you want to do it by species, or do you want to do it by basically the mass of stuff. So like you might want the trees to be native more than the other stuff or whatever. So I have to, I've been looking at that.
And then for zoning stuff, I went through I think I put in your packet I didn't print it, but in the online packet, there's a document from NHMA and the Office of Planning and Development of all the kind of the major legal updates from the year. And we always have to make sure that our ordinances catch up with those. So there's a couple that apply. One is that there's a change in who can file an appeal from ZBA decisions. So that's kind of, I'll just make the change to make that happen, align with the new RSA. And there were some changes to the definitions of home-based childcare as well. Those are kind of minor. We don't really need to discuss them. Then I'll let Scott talk about the changes to the building code sections.
Yeah, so I'll preface this by saying I haven't even been with the town a full year yet. So in the almost year that I've been here, there's been a few instances that have come up, and Carrie and I have caught a few things in the ordinances that have made enforcement and my building inspection duties somewhat difficult at times. So she and I have gone through the ordinances, and I've made a list of numerous changes. Some of them are just grammatical and minor changes. There were some spacing and word usage that just didn't make sense. But primarily, there's been a couple changes that I am asking to be put forward, primarily in the definitions and under the enforcement section, section 14. Without going through them in full detail at the moment, under the definitions, proposing to remove most of the language of what we actually define as building code, and simply say the adopted text of the New Hampshire Building Code pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 155A, because that statute is the state building code. And it just refers it right back to the state building code without us having to go back and continually update our ordinances every time the state adopts a new version of the code or makes amendments to it. So
Seems logical.
yeah, and contractors alike and myself are bound by statutory law to enforce the state building code under 155A, regardless of what our ordinance says. So it makes sense to have our ordinance essentially just refer back to the state statute.
Do we have, before you go further, I guess it would be helpful to see the sections that are being crossed out, just because,
Of course.
we can have things that are more restrictive in our regulations than the building codes. I just would want to.
So correct. And I will get to that when I get to section 14 as far as the restrictive. Another one I'm requesting to change is the actual definition of a dwelling unit. Again, because majority of the time applications and developments alike may just have an application that does not come before this board. It comes to Carrie or myself. So I'm requesting to mirror the language that's in the building code for dwelling unit. So again, everything is in line and matches, and it makes it a lot easier when somebody has a simple development that, again, doesn't need any action from this board.
Is there a definition by the building code for dwelling unit, and then does that break out single family, two family, multifamily as well? Or
It does.
You would look recommending changing all 4 of those?
Not necessarily. The town ordinance definitions, we specifically spell out dwelling unit, which currently, I'll just read it for the record, states within a structure, housekeeping quarters with cooking, living, sanitary, and sleeping facilities for one family. That is our current definition. I'm proposing to change dwelling unit to a single unit providing complete independent living facilities for one or more persons, including provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation. Basically, it's, it defines that there's more than just, sleeping quarters and cooking facilities. Includes bathroom and, living room and what have you. Further, our definitions separately define single family, 2-family, and multifamily dwellings. And those are coordinated with the definition of dwelling unit already. So it just, in our ordinances, it specifically spells out single family occupied exclusively by one family. And 2-family dwelling, it specifically spells out structure designed for or occupied exclusively by 2 families independently living from one another. So it doesn't hinge on the actual definition of dwelling unit, if that makes sense. And much to Adam's comments, we can absolutely make the document I have with all my comments available to you guys. So I know Harry had prepared just a brief document this evening with some bullet points, I believe, right? On
Yeah, I didn't.
I guess, Carrie, to my question there, like, I'm reading the definition of dwelling unit and reading the definition of dwelling single family. What's the difference between those two?
A dwelling unit is a broader term, meaning any type of,
Any type.
and then the single to multi kind of break it down into more specific
But
categories.
as it was written in here, it's for one family, and then occupied exclusively by one family is the definition.
Yeah, the only difference is it says does not include manufactured
Right.
housing.
Right. So does,
Are you saying what's the difference between a dwelling unit and a single family dwelling? Is that what you're asking?
yeah, as far as the definition,
So a dwelling unit could be a single family home. It could be one unit of a duplex. It could be like a dwelling unit is one unit.
yeah, exactly. It is an individual unit. It could be an apartment, an accessory dwelling unit.
okay.
It's like, yeah. And then a single family dwelling is
That's only
one
one.
that's just for
yeah.
one family. And
Yeah.
it is
A house
important-
that's not a manufactured house.
Yeah, it is important that we do include that section there that says it does not include manufactured housing, and that is actually, we've found kind of an important
Mhm.
phrase,
Okay.
that little spot in that definition is the what's not allowing a manufactured home on a single lot in Bow. So it's kind of a critical sentence
Yes.
in a definition.
So, and where single family, 2-family, and multifamily dwellings come into play is further in section 5, where, what is and is not permitted within specific zoning districts. But as she stated, dwelling unit it's more specific to the word unit there. Continuing on, I'm requesting a change to the definition of habitable floor area. Currently, it has a reference to the 1 and 2 family building code from 2009. The state of New Hampshire is currently on the 2021 edition of that code, so heavily outdated. I'm proposing just to remove the reference to the IRC, the International Residential Code. Because again, it defaults right back to the state building code, and whichever code is in effect is what would be applicable. Some that are just minor word changes, just for clarity. Another large one, I don't have the page numbers on this particular one. I'm recommending we remove the definition for travel trailer. And what I'm recommending we insert is the definition for recreational vehicle, which shall mean a self-propelled or towed vehicle that is equipped to serve as temporary living quarters for recreational, camping, or travel purposes and is used solely as a family or personal conveyance. That is the same definition that is in state law. That is a statutory definition that I'm copying and pasting to our ordinance. And it's used in various other places in our ordinance. Recreational vehicle is used in another paragraph, but there was no definition for it. Travel trailer was. Now, common sense is, yeah, they're one and the same, but realistically, you want to have words and phrases that are used specifically also defined. So recommending that modification. And then, as I said, there's a handful of grammatical changes and simple stuff. Yeah, I'm not going to go through all that in full detail and bore you all at this moment. What we can
Saving
do.
it for another
We
moment.
appreciate it.
But primarily, there is a very large one. Bear with me because I have to scroll to it. In section 7.15, accessory buildings. Paragraph A, location of accessory buildings. Currently, it states, in any district, no permanent accessory building or structure shall be permitted in any required yard area. We do not define yard area. What is yard area? That's vastly subjective and open to wide interpretation. So I am making the recommendation that we delete the portion of the sentence that says shall be permitted in any required yard area and change it to shall be constructed on any portion of a lot that lies within a minimum minimum yard requirement indicated within table of dimensional regulations, section 6.07. And because that is where it spells out what our setbacks are. So by changing that, it clearly defines in this paragraph that accessory buildings and structures must meet the building setbacks as spelled out already under section 6.07.
Sounds reasonable.
So wait a minute. Doesn't 6.03 in the table of dimensional uses talks about what the yard is, yard requirements?
It does talk about the roads.
Let me get back to that.
I mean, I think that I interpreted yard as the setbacks.
Correct. It's the phrasing yard area in section 7 that I was referring to, that I just read. But in section 603 that you just pointed out, talks about front yard, talks about rear yard, talks about side yard. And then further down in 6.07, it's got the actual table of the dimensional requirements that are ultimately necessary and needed. Again, in section 7, changing that provides more clarity when I have to issue a permit to someone to reiterate that they have to meet those building setbacks within section 6.0 table 6.07.
So are you saying throughout we should change the word yard to setback?
Not throughout the entire ordinance. I can go through that in further detail. The way that particular sentence and paragraph in section 7 read made it confusing when trying to address building setbacks and accessory structures for permitting purposes and what have you.
Yes, instead of just saying in any required yard area, it just references the actual section that describes what those requirements are. So it just
Exactly.
points people to what you're talking about.
So, and I should have prefaced this. a lot of these changes are, from my aspect, on an enforcement purpose. None of these changes are meant to change the status and
Change the policy
the
itself.
policy itself of the ordinance. I'll be blunt. I don't live in town. I have no horse in this race. All of my issues with this are based on my job and the enforcements I have to take on them. So a lot of the clarity I'm asking to be added in is for that purpose. And moving on in that, section 7.17. I again copied that language from section 7.15A that we just discussed, and copied it in there such that, boats, recreational vehicles, camping trailers are not stored, shall not be stored on any portion of a lot that lies within the minimum yard requirements indicated in section 607, except on permitted driveways. Because there are many, many cases where the driveway is within the building setback itself. And obviously you're going to park your boat and camper in your driveway. So yeah, just again, adds clarity. But for long-term storage, you don't want people parking their 30-foot RV on the property line over the winter, and defeats the purpose of the accessory building setbacks that we just discussed. Because if it's there for 6-7 months at a time, it's just short of a permanent structure and a major eyesore.
Who enforces that?
Scott?
Yes.
So do you if you see that driving around, do you knock on their door? How does that work?
Not necessarily. We operate on a complaint basis. So unless the only time I get involved in any zoning or ordinance violation is if it is one of a major environmental or safety concern. Otherwise, if it is something like a building setback issue or travel trailer parked over on the property line, vehicles exceeding the number of unregistered vehicles on your property, then we ask for a written complaint for me to follow up with.
Which is good.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, quite frankly.
You don't have time to drive
No,
around.
I'm curious how
Over the years, there has been some different times where that did start happening. We had a short period of, they were on 3A, pulling business owners into the planning board meetings, because something, wasn't right. And I mean, it wasn't, there was just a couple months there that they're like, hey,
Yeah.
nobody's complaining,
Got it.
And
Again,
to be blunt, I don't necessarily have the time to be chasing ghosts.
Yeah.
Because they don't it may not always be an actual violation, which is the purpose for written complaints.
Makes sense.
Very quickly, in section 7.27, remove the code reference from the 2009 code that doesn't apply anymore. And again, re-reference the state building code. Carrie and I have begun discussions on section 8, which is our sign regulations. Just within our office, we both agree and feel that our sign regulations need a substantial overhaul.
I don't know if you all know this,
we've
but
been trying to do that for.
Yeah.
I don't know if you all know this, but so there's section 8 here in the zoning ordinance, and then we have that business development district, Article 15. The district is defunct. There are no lots that fall in that district anymore, but we still have that ordinance. And there's a section on signs that applies also. It's like a ghost ordinance. People can't find it. And so we have sign stuff here, we have sign stuff there. There's more sign stuff in the town code relating to signs in the right of way. And there have been some significant court decisions on the federal level.
Yeah,
that
there's
have really impacted sign ordinances and what we can and can't enforce. And our ordinance has not caught up with that.
There's a lot of content-based issues as it revolves around signs. There is a case law out there from Reed versus Gilbert that essentially prohibits any content-based enforcement of a sign. So I'll take the political signs we see, for instance. There are some that don't even have candidates' names. They're just stating a political ideology. We can't touch those whatsoever, aside from being political, because it's content based. So regardless whether, somebody calls, complains to me about it, I can't do anything about it. So, and we've also discovered some issues in some applications that have come in the past year. The sign dimensions don't necessarily always make sense either. When you reference section 8 here in the zoning ordinance or section 15 in the business development district ordinance, it makes it very difficult.
Should we be getting rid of like that whole section 15?
I think we need to merge it into one. I think we need to toss out both of them and
Yeah,
create
one
one
sign.
decent one.
Well, I just meant in terms of just since there's no district
Oh, yeah.
that pertains to, basically, shouldn't we just,
There are several sections that we still use, like the aesthetic design standards are in there, but we could pull all of that out and put it in the site plan right where it belongs.
I think, to get rid of the whole business development area, since it's,
It's tricky because it is still a legally adopted document. Even though the district doesn't exist anymore, the document itself still exists. So those regulations it points us to are still enforceable.
What was that district? What was it?
it was half of the I-2.
half of the purple over there, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Along 3A.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll come back with some suggestions on signs.
Yeah, I think we're gonna work with
Yeah.
NHMA and try to find out if there's other towns that have recently updated with like legally enforceable sign regulations.
We discussed reaching out to the planning commissions and
We're gonna try to find a good model.
NHMA, even other municipalities for assistance and try to revamp this a bit. So quite frankly, I don't think we'll have the time to get it in for March's meeting, but
Unless we find a really good model.
yeah, exactly. It's
I'll
possible,
be
but
very interested to see what that.
Yeah.
Since I am in the sign business.
There you go.
so moving on real quick, in section 11.04, paragraph F, it's temporary use and manufactured housing. In short, that paragraph just says a manufactured house can be used as temporary housing when a house is being rebuilt due to catastrophe, fire, whatever. Right now, there's a maximum of 12 months for placement of that manufactured home. I'm recommending it be brought up to 18 months. Construction delays, especially if there's a casualty, fire in a home, waiting for the insurance companies to settle and pay out, whatever, as well as other construction delays. It could definitely take over a year. And, having this time limit of 12 months for temporary housing really undercuts the resident at that point. And the rest of it is down in section 14. And this is the major one, which really kind of affects me as a whole. Primarily, section 1401, paragraph A. It states the town manager shall appoint a building inspector. I recommend just putting in pursuant to RSA 674.1 Roman 5. That's the statutory law that gives the town manager the authority to appoint me. So it's just good to have that reference in there for legal purposes. Subparagraph 1, it says the town building code includes the state of New Hampshire building code as contained within RSA 155 and as amended by the state of New Hampshire. Just some minor language changes. I'm saying instead remove the word include, put shall include, remove the word contained and put defined, because it is an actual definition in statutory law. But subparagraph A, the additions and amendments to the town building code, I'm recommending we delete that in its entirety. As of right now, it's there. As of right now, it is not enforceable. There is currently state statutory law that any town that has an amendment to the building code, they have to submit it to the State Building Code Review Board for confirmation prior to any enforcement of that amendment.
And so that's brand new.
Yeah, that was a new law as of the beginning of this year. It went into effect. I've done that. the Building Code Review Board rejected it because the the code references in this reference the 2009 code. Again, at the time we were on the 2018, we are now on the 2021, and honestly, some of the information that's in this amendment is now already in the building code itself. So it's a moot point in that regard. The main one is the emergency escape and rescue openings. This particular amendment required that regular man doors be used for access to basement as opposed to bulkheads. I've talked with the fire chief and Lieutenant Ferguson over at the fire department, and we've agreed that it's not always needed and necessary. One of my predecessors worked on getting this in as a safety measure because he believed people were finishing the basements without pulling permits, so he was trying to make it safer for those people. Understandable. However, can't always base it on, what could be. Yes, people could be doing work on their own, but reality is it's going to happen, and that falls on my shoulders to educate people on the importance of pulling permits and making sure things are done correctly and properly. From the fire department, they agree that if they need to get into a basement to rescue someone, they're getting in no matter what is there, whether it be a bulkhead, a man door, or if they have to go in through the building itself. They will find a way and they will get down there. And for people that are actually finishing their basements, there are a lot of egress requirements in the current building codes now that weren't in the 2009 edition. So again, it almost becomes a moot point having this in place. So my recommendation is to just remove it in its entirety. If not, it would require a substantial rewrite. It would again have to go back to the State Building Code Review Board for confirmation, and then they would send it back to us, and then we could put it on the ballot. So same thing with the water test results. There's now an actual definition on potable water requirements, and it is essentially left up to me as a policy on what that is. And I use the state of New Hampshire DES primary requirements on what is considered potable for a water source to your property. It has limitations for arsenic and lead and what have you. So
they would still have to submit a water test.
yes, yeah, exactly. There's still requirements for water test results to be submitted for any new dwelling that's put in place that's not connected to the public water source. If a well is drilled, they have to test the water and provide me a copy of it. And if it fails, they have to install a mitigation system and then provide me a second test showing that it now complies with the mitigation system in operation. The newest house up on Birchdale Road had to do that. So that failed the arsenic test. So they had to put in an arsenic remediation, and they were able to get me proper test results, and it's clean, safe water for that resident now. In section 4.02.
Sorry, can we go back to the smoke detectors?
Did I scroll past that? Sorry.
It's before the potable water.
Okay, yeah. The addition for smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, that is now in the building code. That paragraph is almost identical in the current building code. So again, it's not needed in our zoning ordinance or as an amendment. Including the exception that interconnected hardwired smoke detectors aren't always necessary or needed. That's also in the codes. So yeah, in section 4.02, I'm recommending I put in, fees for any such permit in accordance with the adopted code of the Town of Bow, chapter 124, the fee schedule. It's a separate Town of Bow code adopted by the Board of Selectmen. This is just referencing that and defining where those fees are found. And then the rest of things in that particular section are more or less grammatical and see, I'm just going back through. Yeah, they were just more or less grammatical and minor changes that, don't alter the premise of the ordinance, just make it clear and make the enforcement that much easier for those of us that have to deal with that aspect.
So that would mean that we would have no local amendments to the building code anymore.
Correct.
And just to put you on the spot, there aren't any others that you would recommend the town taking on, any other?
Not at this time, no.
Okay.
That's the gist of the changes. Now Carrie or I will make sure you guys get a copy of the,
Clean them up and
Yep.
get out the new version.
yeah, I currently have a Word form, a Microsoft Word with all of these changes tracked. So you can see the actual additions, deletions, and the comments I've put in. Yeah. So for any additional clarity.
And then, does anyone have any other areas of the ordinance that we don't have to necessarily go through them all tonight, but if there's sections that you think that should be looked at for amendments?
I think we'll see you come up with the signs.
Yeah, I think the sign.
Sign
maybe
thing is
become a-
definitely.
Yeah.
There's gonna be that is the one thing that could actually like change policy, that
Yes.
it's difficult to enforce the way it's written.
Very.
It's difficult to even interpret. I can't even figure out what the rules
Sure.
are.
Yeah.
So if signs are the priority, then we can get to work on that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good to clean up.
Yeah.
And I think it is, going to what the state codes. In terms of that, that's great.
Yeah. Again, a lot of the reference is just removing whatever actual reference to an outdated code that we have in the ordinance now and just referring back to the state law that's already in place. And it saves us from having to go back and re-update every time the state updates. So just points to the statutory law and it leaves it at that.
Good.
Any other business, Carrie? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.